struggling to lift our own growth, but Continental Africa's gross domestic product will grow by 50%, a whopping 50%, to $3.7 trillion over the next 5 years. That's the forecast of economists at consulting firm Deloitte. The rise of the middle-class consumer is expected to be the main driving force. Once an economy only associated with natural resources and commodity exports, it's believed Africa is at the start of a significant consumer boom. To discuss, we're now joined by Andre Dennis, a sub-Saharan consumer business leader at Deloitte. Thank you for joining us, Andre. For a while, people were talking about this amazing African growth story years ago, but then everything became more worrisome, and we've seen Japan in recession at the moment, Europe slumping. So I guess I thought those expectations were tempered, but this still sounds phenomenal.
It actually does sound phenomenal. I think the biggest contributor to our statement is that the International Monetary Fund's database has indicated that Africa is expected to have a 7.7% growth in GDP over the next 5 years, consistently. And that actually, by just doing the maths, extrapolates to the figures that you refer to. Having said that, I don't think that is what the focus is of what we want to talk about today. I think our message today is that we need to take note of the consumer and the consumer demand that is created in Africa. I think we are all very clear that population growth is massive in Africa. You've referred to the fact that we've got the rise in the middle class. I mean, the expectation is that rise will grow to in excess of 500 million people by 2030. So it does mean that there will be a greater demand for consumer products and services as we go forward.
And it's young people who like brands and certain cell phones and certain jeans and all of that.
Well, that's actually a lovely story to connect with. I mean, our survey is it was done exactly with the young people in mind. The young consumers are 15 to 24 years old. And I think we need to understand that they are the growing consumers of the future. They represent 20% of the population in Africa. They are connected via their cell phones. They use mobile consistently to connect to the internet. 64% of them use their social media sites to communicate with each other. It is a reality, and we have to focus on that.
Is this true? A prediction that 97% of the population will have access to a mobile phone, even though there's still huge swaths of African populations living below the breadline or just above.
I think it's the statistics that makes it unbelievable. I question it myself. I looked at the report.
I just don't know how that's possible.
Exactly. I looked at the GSMA's report for 2013, which indicated that 1 in 3 Africans own a cell phone. And if you consider that the majority of those, on average, have more than 2 SIM cards, you easily get to the 72% that is reflected in our report. And if you consider the population growth and the growth in middle class, you also easily get to 97%
and mobility aids, even trade and tipping people off about what's going on in your area.
It does, and I think that's the biggest challenge for business in South Africa and in Africa, because business need to understand who the new customer is, and business need to understand the behavior of the new customer and the way they engage and communicate with each other, the way they want to shop, the way they do their research, whether they like online or whether they like in-store, visiting and feeling and touching the product they want to buy. It's all dependent on the youth of today. Another area that I would like to touch on is the fact that the middle class itself is such a growing population. I mean, if you just consider that we are going to move from 335 million people to over 500 million, and you consider that there is $2 to $20 per day that these individuals live on, that already indicates that there's massive demand into the future for consumer products.
Isn't there a danger here, though, when you have economies that move from being reliant on commodities to switching to high-end sort of retailing services, financial services? South Africa has that dualism, but there's a piece in the middle where manufacturing, things being made, things being exported, because that top end is fragile. If the economy is fragile, people stop spending. So isn't there a danger with this consumer boom?
There is a danger. There's always a danger with that, and you're 100% correct. I think that we must not underestimate what has already happened in Africa. We just have to look at the M-Pesa scheme in Kenya to understand that e-commerce and e-trade with money is growing significantly. If you just consider that more than a quarter of the value of the GDP in Kenya is moved via the M-Pesa system. It is incredible. It's not going to change tomorrow. It's not going to drop tomorrow. The demand and the need for that is going to grow because people have an expectation.
All right, thank you for your analysis, Andre Dennis from Deloitte. Well,